Welcome to the Sovereign Kitchen Society, a podcast dedicated to reclaiming the wisdom of our elders and the old ways of living. Each week, we bring you stories and skills from farmers, homesteaders, chefs, and changemakers who are choosing a slower, simpler, more sovereign way of life. Our mission is simple: to help you reconnect with your roots, become more self-sufficient, and carry ancestral knowledge forward for the next generation. What is up, you beautiful peeps? Today on the Sovereign Kitchen Society, I'm introducing you to someone whose journey embodies the very heart of sovereignty and transformation, Mollie Engelhart. Mollie is a former vegan chef who became a regenerative rancher in Texas. She wears many hats: chef, activist, farmer, author, and mother of four. Her life took a turn in 2020 when a series of awakenings pushed her to re-examine everything that she thought that she knew about food, farming, and of course the natural world. And through that process, Mollie has become a leading voice for food sovereignty, community, resilience, and living in alignment with nature's truths. She founded Sovereignty Ranch, where she is showing what it looks like to step out of ideology and into a relationship with the land, honoring both life, death, growth, decay as inseparable parts of the cycle. Her story is one of courage, humility, and discovery, and I am so honored to be able to have this conversation with her today. Thank you so much for being here, Mollie.
Thank you for having me, Mollie. It's the Mollie Show today.
So for those who may not know you yet, can you introduce a little bit about who you are and your journey from moving from a vegan chef into a regenerative rancher, and talk a little bit about what has inspired you to write Debunked?
So I am probably most well known as that I was the chef of Sage Vegan Bistro, which was a chain of restaurants in the Los Angeles area, very popular for many, many years. We were the first vegan beer garden. I had a brewery, and I made my living, my identity, all of my self-worth was attached to being a vegan chef. That was a big part of who I was. And so as you grow older and you evolve and you learn new information, I would say that the first new information that I learned was about regenerative agriculture was like in 2013, and I got very interested in wanting to bring all the compost from the restaurants, all the food scraps, and not let it putrefy and turn into methane in the landfill, but bring it back to the farm and turn it back into food. So keep that food in the loop and turn it into organic matter and keep it in the loop. So I was working on that. It took me many years to get a farm. I finally get a farm. And upon getting on land and grounding into like the reality of nature, I learned very quickly there was no vegan food, that vegan food was an illusion that I had been sold. I thought there's a possibility that I could just not eat meat and cause less harm. That if I just declare there's no meat on my plate, then I was doing less harm. And that feels good, and we all want to be good. And so it feels good to be like, I'm a vegan and I don't eat any meat. And I was raised this way, like whole life. And it felt righteous. It felt good. But a series of things that happened upon being on the land, I really had this epiphany, like, oh, there's no vegan food. All food is part of the consolidated food lot system. All of the fertilizer going on your organic produce is blood meal, bone meal, feather meal, cow poop, chicken poop, all coming out of the consolidated feedlot system. Maybe some fish meal, fish bones. So there is no vegan food. And then we planted like 1,500 avocado trees, and the ground squirrels are getting them, and we're killing ground squirrels to protect our avocados. And I'm like, oh, there's thousands of dead squirrels on avocado toast. No, you just can't see it on the plate. And then, and we're just going through life. And then the neighbor's dogs kill our sheep, and I'm like going to put them in the compost pile. My husband harvests all the meat, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is like the natural way. And then I'm breastfeeding my baby, and my older kid wants milk, and I'm giving oat milk out of a Tetra Pak from Costco, and there's milk in a quart jar in my fridge from my cow. How is that bad for my child? And all these epiphanies, and I realized, but that just broke open everything else, because I realized so much of what we were being taught was not in alignment with nature. And so my book, Debunked by Nature, basically is the story of how nature reprogrammed me to God's design from the programming that I had from living in Los Angeles, from going to university, from all of the things from growing up in Ithaca, New York, it's super liberal. And my book's not really even like liberal and not liberal. I talk about things that are, breastfeeding is a generally liberal thing, and I'm saying we don't breastfeed enough. I talk about co-sleeping. I talk about all these different constructs, and some of them are political and some of them are not, but I take them all into nature. Just like veganism, taking veganism to nature, I realized it doesn't exist. I started to take everything else. Okay, well, let's take breastfeeding, let's take C-section, let's take co-sleeping, let's take immigration, let's take abortion, let's take them all into the woods and see what holds up. How we got to Debunked by Nature.
What I was most moved by, because I too have gone through many awakenings, it seems like, in my life, but I was really moved by your honesty in just expressing what those awakenings were, how you came to them, and to be open enough to change your mind on so many issues. I would love to hear a little bit more about just maybe a couple of what those awakenings were, how you came to those realizations, and how they shifted your perspective in life, and even in like the trajectory of your business and how you raise your family.
It's interesting. You write a book, it's kind of intimate, like you are just doing it and you're on your schedule. And I was getting up every morning at 4:30 and writing from 4:30 to 6:30 or something like that when the kids are still sleeping. And so I'm being totally honest, but I'm literally just being totally honest with my laptop or my phone. And I'm not being totally honest with anybody, right? It's just, I'm just being totally honest. And it's funny because I'm generally a pretty edgy, like I'll say what's the truth to be said in a situation. I'm okay with that. But so I wrote the book, but in a very intimate setting of myself in the rocking chair at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 in the morning with my coffee. And then last week, I guess, or before Charlie Kirk got shot, like the day before, I want to say, or 2 days before, got a text message from somebody that had gotten the book somehow, and they were displeased with my opinions of life. And I was like, oh, well, that's like whatever. And all of a sudden I felt totally naked, because I thought, wow, like I did this whole book very honestly, very raw, very truthful. And then literally the only people that have read it are those that wrote a blurb for it, and my publisher and my editor. And like, that's it. Like, I don't even know that my dad has read the book yet. You know what I mean? And so it got sent out to like reviewers and whatever. All of a sudden, I thought like anybody with an Amazon account come the 25th of September is going to know like my deepest and darkest secrets, like my authentic, like even I tell on myself like about how my own ego was like stroking my ego about how good I am for breastfeeding for so long, and like all of these things about how I got married, I wasn't in love with my husband, like all of it. And I was like, I just had this realization like, wow, I'm super naked right now. But anyways, so that is, and then Charlie Kirk got killed, and I thought, wow, being really vulnerable and being out there with your ideas fully full-throated is dangerous. I literally had the thought like, wow, great. And, I wrote this book and I write a few times a week for Epoch Times. And, I don't think about, it goes out into the world. And the way I view Epoch Times is almost like, I don't know all those people. The demographic is, I think, conservative and older, and they are the best people ever. Like, they come into the restaurant with their little newspapers and want me to sign it. It's very cute. And, I had a guy yesterday come into the restaurant. He drove his wife to the airport in San Antonio, and they live hours away, and he decided to come and have lunch and meet me because he loves my articles. Like, super cute. But every once in a while I'll see in the comments, like, very ugly, like, your husband's a dirty criminal who broke the laws. And mostly it's about my husband being undocumented when we got married. Why? How could you marry someone who doesn't speak English? What's wrong with you? Like, a lot of that, like, he's a criminal, once a criminal, always a criminal. But I don't know, I don't let that, like, really bother me. But when I did change my restaurants from being, and I don't know if people know this, or I mentioned it earlier, but I changed my vegan restaurants to regenerative. And so that's my big thing. Not only did I go from being a vegan chef to a Texas cattle rancher, I go from having these vegan restaurants, and then I attempted to switch that. Not attempted, I did. And then the attempt was to stay in business after doing that. But I attempted to make them regenerative, and my intention was to totally support all these small farmers, which I now owe money to, and I'm like paying on Venmo a couple $100 here and there, trying to get paid off. Like, I was trying to help, and now I'm part of the problem and the burden. But the vegans lost their mind and threatened to kill me, to murder my children, throw blood on the front of the restaurant. I'm praying for you to get cancer. I'm praying for your kids to watch us have a slow, terrible death in front of you, blah, 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 blah. And so I all of a sudden thought, well, I didn't just say this about veganism. I come out about what I think about immigration and abortion and lots of other very hot, high energy, high anxiety issues. And so I remember feeling like, oh gosh, why did I want to be so authentic? But ultimately, why did I want to be so authentic is that if we can't change our mind publicly, if we can't get more information and then say, with this more information that's been made available to me, then my wisdom was to hold this belief to be true. But now that I have this new information, that doesn't make sense. And so I went full out. And I talk about transgenderism, racism, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I mean, I don't leave any stone unturned. And how I come to any of these things is all through my relationship with farming, all through my relationship with nature. And, for example, I talk about in nature, we have diversity of personalities and we have diversity of sexual behavior. So do you see two girls or two boys having sexual behavior together? Yes, all the time. But we never see abandonment of one's physiological responsibility to the species. That doesn't exist in nature. And I use this example of I have this cow. Her name is Camilla. Camilla has very long horns. She's a Highland Dexter cross. And when there's no bull in the pasture, you can count on that she's going to eat first. She's going to be pushing the other girls around. She's going to jump on the girls when they're in heat. And she is going to run stuff. She's going to be the boss, the masculine energy in the field. Once you put a bull in the field, she's going to steer clear of the bull, and she's going to mind her business and just steer clear of the bull. And then she's going to go into heat, and she's going to be best friends with the bull. She's going to mate with the bull, and then she's going to be a mother, and she's going to breastfeed that child, let that calf suckle for 9, 10, 11, 12 months. And those two things, so does she have plenty of masculine traits? Yes. But does she choose to abandon her commitment to her biology? No. And that is the difference. We as humans have started to abandon our biology. And it's not just in the trans thing. We are deciding not to have children. We are sterilizing ourselves. We are okay with being sterilized by these companies and all the powers that be. And all of it, if you ask me, comes back to us feeling totally hopeless on this planet and feeling like we're a plague, like we're a pestilence, like we're a problem. And in that, our mind does weird things. But if we remember we belong here and we are perfect, that God does not make mistakes, and that we are perfect in the perfect body for us to learn the perfect lessons that our soul wants to learn in this lifetime, that's a different context. But right now, the green movement has taught us we are a scourge, a plague, a pestilence, destroying this planet. And you shouldn't be here, and you shouldn't have children. And just breathing CO2, you're a problem. Eating CO2, you're a problem. That's crazy. CO2 is the building blocks of all of life. The psyop, in order to make us feel guilty about living, is so that the powers that be can poison us into extinction, and we don't fight back because we think we are the problem. We are not the problem. You were made in God's image and you belong here, and that is so obvious in nature. But in university, in college, in society, in Los Angeles, in my vegan restaurants, it's not obvious.
Going back to the first time when you had your vegan restaurant, you decided that you wanted to serve regenerative meats and maybe some raw dairy, and people freaked out and you became thrown into the public eye, which maybe you didn't expect. How did you continue to show up being vulnerable and speaking your truth? Because that takes so much courage.
So I want to not take like the accolades for being courageous, because the truth is I wanted to do this a long time ago. And in 2019, I wanted to do it. But we got an offer for $25 to $31 million for my restaurants. And it did not make sense to mess up this retirement type money, double, triple, quadruple, retirement type money. And then I can go on and be a regenerative farmer, and I can advocate for whatever I want once this deal goes through. And so I want to say, everybody thought that I did the regenerative thing for the money. No, the truth is I stayed vegan for the money. The truth is I knew since 2018 that what I was doing was not in alignment. 2018, 2019 was not in alignment with what I believed was the true as best marriage of man and nature possible. But I also had spent 15 years building that business and felt that I deserved to cash that out and then start over. I could do a regenerative restaurant, I could do a regenerative farm, I could do whatever I want. But let me just, and not just me, my investors that believed in me, that struggled, that made no money for years, that everybody deserved the cash out. I just put my head down, hoped nobody noticed that my kids were drinking raw milk, and was a little terrified of the vegans. I was in the deal, and we're like, you got to reach these goals, and I exceed the goals. Q4 of 2019, I exceed the goals. Q1 of 2020, and Q2 of 2020. Ixnay, no indoor dining, 2.5 years, the stroke of a pen, a bureaucrat can steal the middle class, just like that. And so I lose, not only do I lose this retirement money, the big money, I also lose my ability to make a living with the businesses I built in the hardest state in the country to do business, in one of the hardest cities in the country to do business. And somehow I just lose all of it, like overnight, because we just changed the rules. And no accountability. There's nobody's responsible. Nobody feels responsible for that. I assert that there's lots of people are responsible. But so when you close me down for 2.5 years, I can't sell my restaurants. I can't make money. I have 350 employees, blah, 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 blah. And so now it doesn't make sense to try to change the restaurant to regenerative while we're all just getting to go, and then you're going to try to raise the prices, have regenerative protein and all this stuff when it's all to go. That doesn't make sense. So we're just in the survival of the pandemic. And so we're, I get some contracts feeding elderly people that can't leave their house. I'm trying, I've got a little grocery stores going in the restaurant. I'm selling produce from the farm. I'm doing CSA boxes. I'm just pivot. We're selling toilet paper and paper towels, pivot. And I'm having babies too. Like 3 months before the pandemic, I had a baby, and then I had another baby in 23. So, I was having babies. I was pregnant and breastfeeding this whole time. Pivot, baby. I'm thinking life is going to go back to normal. I'm thinking I'm going to be able to sell the restaurants. It comes clear in 24 that I've lost more than half of my restaurants. I'm losing money at a clip that is unsustainable. And I'm thinking, and honestly, if I could go back, and I don't know if I could go back, because I don't know what God has set in motion by the things that happened the way they did. But I thought in my mind that maybe the restaurants were not working, not because of what's going on in California and all of that, but maybe the restaurants are not working because it's out of integrity with what I believe. That I now am a regenerative farmer. I now believe I'm doing regenerative farming. I'm not posting on Instagram, but I have cows and I'm moving them every day and I'm on it. And so maybe that there's an out integrity between what I believe and who my business is. And so that is how we get to, well, should we just close down or should we try to do it in integrity with what I believe? I feel like a punk because maybe I should have done it way before, but these are the circumstances and this is how it was. And so on Earth Day, so I decide, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to close one more restaurant and try to make the last two regenerative. So when you said, maybe you didn't know what was coming. I didn't know that the Post would make a full 2-page spread in their physical copy, the New York Post. Yes, of course, I didn't know exactly, but I knew that the vegan backlash would be immense. My father ate a hamburger in 2015. He's the founder of Cafe Gratitude. It was on CNN, Huffington Post. People were spitting in my brother's face. I knew what was coming. I guess what I underestimated or overestimated, is I thought that the paleo mamas, the back to the land people, the regenerative people, the I don't eat seed oils people, I thought they would flood in. I thought there was more of them in Los Angeles than there was the vegans. And I thought, no problem. Yes, we're going to lose the vegans. Yes, we're going to get all this hate. But I know everybody I know, all they want is tallow fries and a grass-fed, grass-finished burger with A2 cheese and sourdough bun. That's all anybody wants with no seed oils. That's it. So I felt, and I overestimated, that there was just thousands and thousands of people that wanted to eat that way in Los Angeles. So, and the other thing what? I have radical faith. I always say I'm a radical centrist with radical faith. But I was not surprised by the vegans. I was not surprised by the animal activists, animal rights activists. I'm not sure who's funding. There's definitely some professional funding going on, and there was definitely, and I know this because people would get confused and they would think, because I stood out there with the protesters and talked to them and said, you're here screaming, you're trying to destroy my business. And I talked and I was in conversation and I was look me in the eyes, look at my soul. Tell me if you think I'm a murderer. Tell me if you think I'm doing this for the money. Look at me, see me. And if you could look in my eyes and you could say that I'm doing it for the money, okay. But I'm asking you, look at me and see. I am a mother I am an employer, I am a wife, and I am being called to do something that is dangerous and scary for all of us. And like, can you see me? So because I was out there talking with all the people would come up to the protesters and be like, "Hey, I'm part of organization. Do you need water? Do you guys need more signs printed? Like, what do you need?" And I'd be like, "Okay, so who's?" And then I would try to ask, like, "Oh, who's organizing this?" And then they would quickly realize who I was. But there was definitely professional printed signs, support, car support, like people there with water and chargers and like support for the protesters. So I'm just saying that was a consolidated effort. But to me, it's not, the consolidated effort is not against me. The goal right now is divide and conquer. And the goal right now is to have us fight against each other. If I can fight about microaggressions and racism and veganism and all the isms, sexism and transphobia, all the phobias, all the homophobia, like all the phobias and all the isms, then we don't stand together and say, yo, we belong here and you can't poison us to death and you can't keep printing money, diluting our hard-earned wealth and extracting everything you can from the earth. We all have dominion, and you don't get to just take it. But as long as we are fighting vegan on vegan, as long as there's 100 YouTube channels screaming about Mollie putting meat in her restaurant, and then there's 100 YouTube channels screaming about Charlie Kirk and ha ha ha, and there's 100 YouTube channels screaming about this and that, it's all about divide and conquer. And it's so good. They're so good at it. Because look, if you will go on the internet right now, I don't know when this will come out. I mean, I know it's live, but when it comes out on Spotify or whatever, we're in mid-September right now. So if you were to go on the internet right now, you can find everything from Bill Ackman is good, Candace is bad, Candace hates Charlie, Charlie's never talked to this, and then you could have the truthers fighting with each other. Like, if you think Charlie's actually dead, you're dumb. Well, I was in the military and I know that was a real blah, blah, blah. And then, so you have the truthers fighting against each other. You have his friends fighting against each other. Like, oh, he was pro-Israel. He was not. He was changing his mind about Israel. He was vying for that. And then you have the left saying like, oh, I'm so glad he's dead. Or, hey, we can't say he's glad he's dead. No. We have to have the higher ground, blah, 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 blah. So you see how in every group, the Republicans or the supporters of Charlie Kirk, they're fighting over how he believed about Israel. The left is fighting over the appropriate way to talk about his death. And the truther movement is fighting over whether he's dead or not. And so it's not even just left and right. They are fracturing any sense of any movement anywhere. And that is the intention of the powers that be, that we, the people, must make the powers that were. And so we have to always observe, what is the purpose of this thing that I've been taking? Like, what is the purpose? And, you know, the person who's saying it may not even know what the purpose is, because they may be regurgitating something else that they heard. So it's not that every person that's saying these certain things are part of the psyop. But what I'm saying is the divide is the psyop. And so and this is the thing, we're past left and right. We're past black and white. We're past American and other countries. We actually have to say there's more slaves than there is masters, and it is time for the slaves to rise. But not if we're fighting against ourselves. Like, we actually have to stop. And so whether it's veganism or Charlie Kirk or Donald Trump or any of it, it's all a psyop to make you divide from those of you that are just a reflection of you. All of us are God's expressions made in his image on this earth, and we have forgotten that. We can't even talk to each other. We hate each other. We think if you don't agree with me, then my identity is being attacked because I am my ideas. And what I realized through giving up veganism, I am not Mollie Engelhart, the vegan chef. I am a soul in a skin bag in my body having a human experience. And I am not my ideas. And my ideas I had in my 20s are different than my 30s, and my 30s are different than my 40s. And I assume my 50s will be different than my 40s. And so if we can give everybody the grace that their ideas are just what their life experience has led them to thus far, and only through conversation can an awakening happen. That is what they're trying to just have us hate each other so we cannot rise.
That is beautiful. And I felt that. I love that. What can you say to people that are getting super triggered by what's going on in the world right now? How can we essentially unplug and not play the game anymore?
I mean, I will say it's a struggle. I remember in 2021, New Year's of 2021, we were going around the table on New Year's Eve. And someone said, like, what was the best and the worst part of your rose and your thorn for 2021? And I looked back at 2021, and all I could remember was watching vaccine videos, watching vaccine injury, researching. I was highly obsessed with vaccines. Like an entire year. I have 4 children. I have and of course there was moments that I wasn't watching videos like that or whatever. But when I sat there and looked at like the bulk of what my year was, and I thought, I don't want another year like this. I don't want to give up the time with my family. But it's still a struggle. Me and my husband were having an argument this morning that he's like, you're too much on your phone. And not just social media. Like, I write articles on my phone. I work from my phone. I do fulfill orders from our website. I'm spread super thin, and I'm addicted to my phone, like, to be totally honest. Like, and I'm spread super thin, and your phone is this tool that you can use, but then you get distracted. You get onto your email for one thing, and the next thing you know, you're out of your family's space for 20 minutes, and then, oh, let me get back in. So I have been working on like having Sabbath, not like necessarily on Friday nights or whatever, but like from my phone. Like, I'm going to plug my phone in, and I'm going to go away and downstairs and outside and have it be on silent so I can't hear it ringing and calling and ringing. So one thing is just being with the family without any devices is the one thing that I'm trying to do. And then the other thing is just asking yourself, what would love do? What would God do? What would Jesus do? And trying to come at everything with a nuanced perspective. Jimmy Kimmel, for example, got fired this week. I don't particularly like Jimmy Kimmel. I felt bullied by him for years during the pandemic. My best friend who passed away of cancer worked for him and always thought he was a lovely man. I'm sure that he is, but he believed very strongly that you should get a vaccine and stood by that for all of COVID. But I also think a society that can't take a joke, that he has to be fired because we don't like his joke. Tasteless jokes are part of having jokes. And a society that can't take a joke is not a healthy society. And I say that on both sides of the aisle. And I see a lot of people on the right celebrating his firing, but I don't think that's actually in alignment with their ideals. I don't actually think that they want comedians to lose their jobs for making ill-fated jokes. And I say it on the other side. I think Roseanne Barr, who's a conservative, should not have been fired for saying, she had a successful show. Her job was to sell advertising. She was selling lots of advertising. Now, assuming Jimmy Kimmel is also selling lots of advertising and that is his job, then he's fulfilling on his job. Now, obviously, private businesses, freedom of speech does not apply. I can fire anybody for having a belief that I don't like, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just saying a society that can't take a joke, a society that can't have a conversation, a society that can't disagree is not a healthy society. And we are not a healthy society. And that is by design, because if we come together, that is the most dangerous thing possible. And we are walking ourselves fast right into the money slave digital ID Palantir system. And we are in full agrarian collapse. We've lost 170,000 farms in the last 8 years. 1 in 15 farms has been wiped out in the last 8 years. This is unsustainable. And we are arguing about microaggressions and pronouns and a lot of other BS that literally doesn't matter. And I understand that we have been conditioned to believe that it really, really matters, but we're being poisoned. We are having our fertility stolen from us by chemicals. The farmers that grow our food, 90, 80 something percent, in the high 80, almost 90%, work a second job so they can lose money growing your food. The system is not working. And what is going to happen is we are going to be fully surveilled, not being able to use our money unless we do what they tell us to do, eating food that's made out of big corn, big soy, printed food, and we're not going to be able to reproduce. And so I'm wondering if we could stop screaming about reproductive rights and start screaming about the rights of our children to reproduce. And I think that as long as we are distracted by microaggressions and the patriarchy, we are missing the greater point. We are being poisoned out of extinction. Our farmers are collapsing at an unsustainable rate. And huge surveillance, AI surveillance, is being brought in. They are building data centers like you can't believe. You think this is so that we can ask ChatGPT esoteric questions or to help with our spelling? It's not. And so my request is that as humans, could we put our differences aside about race, about gender, about politics, about religion, about masculinity and femininity, sexuality? Can we put our differences aside about all of that stuff? And can we say, we belong here and we are not going to let you poison us out of extinction or make us feel guilty for breathing air, eating food, and driving our car to take our kids to soccer.
That is the movement. That is the mission. And I really believe that it is all about us coming back together. Food is my medium that I use to connect with other people. What do you recommend that we do in order to come back together and start healing?
I think we have to have conversations with each other. I think that we need to live in community. We have to give up our convenience. I think we have to actively give up our comfort and convenience. I think we have to ask ourselves every day, am I doing what's best for the whole, or am I doing what's best for me? And if we're doing what's best for me, then we're likely harming the whole. Because it's unlikely. Now, on a greater esoteric level, what is best for you is best for the whole, and that's for us to remove ourselves from this broken money slave system. But we're still in it. So right now, people are going to say, well, what are tangible things that I can do? Well, tangible things you can do is be on the small farm diet, the local farm diet, and you can buy as much as your food you can. And people say, well, it's too expensive, it's too this, it's too that. I assert that you're buying shit on Amazon that you don't need, that you are spending money on subscriptions that you don't need, and that there is places that you could redirect that money. And if you were really asking your highest self, this money that I'm paying to this, or would it be better to this chicken farmer or rabbit farmer or milk farmer, would it be better suited there? And so I believe that if we want there to be food that is not run by mega corporations or the CCP, or BlackRock or whatever, then I recommend that you buy from your local farmers. And people say, oh, that's pretty selfish, right? She just wants customers. Sure, I want customers. I'm selfish. You could say that. But I actually think local food is a national security issue. And I'm all for guns. I'm all for the Second Amendment. I'm all for infrastructure for safety and security. But if a real emergency happens, it's going to go like this. You need air, you need water, you need food. Guns, oil, everything, shelter comes after that. Just saying. We are a net importer of food. We have outsourced our food to the cheapest hourly wage. We have done that. We have the power. We vote every moment of every day. And so, do I think you should only spend your money in crypto and I would love that. I would love if everybody just paid me in Bitcoin for sure. Let's go. But at this moment, just spend your dollars on things that you're committed to in your community, or if it's your book, buying your canning book, support you. You're training people in food sovereignty. Buy my book, support my family from a distance if you don't live locally. But support the ideas that you want in the world. It's not enough to just say, this is cool. You know how many people came into Sage when we switched it over to regenerative and said, like, this is so amazing. I've been praying for something like this. And then I didn't see them again until 7 months later when I closed the restaurant. Do you know how many times this happens here on my restaurant on the ranch? Like, this is unbelievable. I'm so glad you're here. And this is how I know, because we moved our farm store in January. So people will be like, walk in and they're like, this is our favorite place. We're bringing our family because we're here, blah, blah, blah. And they'll go to walk to where the farm store was. And I'll think, interesting. So you haven't been here since January, but this is your favorite place. If it's your favorite place, you have to support it. And I'm not trying to be an ass and beg people to give me money. But what I'm saying is, we can't say we want regenerative agriculture. And it goes for me too. I have to buy hay from the regenerative farmer, which costs more, because if I'm not supporting the regenerative hay farmer, then how can I expect for people to support the regenerative beef farmer that I am? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we all have to support each other and keep the money in the circle.
We're coming up on about 10 minutes left. I want to ask you what you're doing at Sovereignty Ranch, how you're educating people or feel inspired to educate people, and how you are bringing people together through food, through this movement that you're creating, and maybe talk a little bit about the Food is Medicine Summit as well.
Sovereignty Ranch is a regenerative farm, 206 acres in the Texas Hill Country. We have cattle, hogs, sheep, and goats, and 350 egg-laying chickens. Have a restaurant, and then we have tiny houses, so we're like a hospitality restaurant operation as well. And then we have a conference room where we do retreats and everything like that. And then we're building a brewery right now. We're looking for another investor. If anybody wants to help us finish this project, please reach out. And so we are building the brewery as well. And we hope to add coffee roasting to what we're doing here as well. And so basically we are just a very well-rounded operation that can support local people that just want to come out and have dinner, and support a yoga retreat, support a church retreat, support any kind of education about soil, about sovereignty. I also am co-founder of the Confluence Festival with Alex Zeck, so we do a lot of education in the sovereignty space, and in the Way Forward is his organization, but in the space of how do we move forward together. We're doing the Food is Medicine Summit in the end of September 25th through the 28th. And we're going to have everybody from Will Harris to Misha Tate. And so many people have said, that wasn't on my bingo card for 2025. The UFC welterweight champion and the Southern gentleman farmer at the same place and talking at the same day. And that's just how we are. We're bringing people together from all different worlds to have these conversations about food, about sovereignty, about how to move forward. And so I just believe that I want to be the ripple effect. I don't want to be the biggest farm in the world. I don't want to be the biggest restaurant chain in the world. I want to be small is beautiful and abundant. I want there to be enough flowing abundance for my family, and I want to be on the land where my family is. I want that, not a bunch of restaurants spread all out, always away from my children. That's not what I want. So that's what I'm building, and I hope that you will bring your corporate retreat here, bring your yoga retreat here, bring your meditation retreat here, bring your church retreat here. And then we also have a big stage with 4,000 square feet of shade on the field so we can do music festivals and stuff like that as well. And that's what we're doing while growing food for my family and the community.
Thank you so much for joining us for this powerful conversation with Mollie Engelhart. Her story carries such an important reminder that sovereignty, resilience, and ancestral wisdom are practices that we can bring about in our daily lives. If you'd like to dive deeper into Mollie's journey, her new book, Debunked by Nature, is available now on Amazon. By picking up a copy, you're not only supporting her work, but you're also standing with the movement towards regenerative agriculture, food sovereignty, and getting back to our roots. You can also follow the incredible work happening at Sovereignty Ranch, where Mollie and her family are modeling what it means to heal the land, nourish community, and live in alignment with nature. Thank you so much for listening to the Sovereign Kitchen Society. Until next time, may we all keep learning, growing, and reclaiming the wisdom that sustains us.